Hello everyone and welcome to Thinking with Mathematical Models 2.2. Our learning target today is we want to be able to write linear equations from verbal, numerical, or graphical information. Now, these linear equations, we're talking about the format of y equals mx plus b, which we went over earlier this year in moving straight ahead. So we're going to expand on what we've learned there, but the first parts of this should be kind of a review for what we did with moving straight ahead. Now remember, we have two variables in a linear equation here. We have our dependent variable, which is y, and we have our independent variable, which is x. Remember, y depends on whatever the value of x is, so that's why it's called the dependent variable. X can be whatever value that we would like to choose for it. That's why it's the independent variable. M is our slope, okay, our change in y over our change in x, and b is our y-intercept, or the value of y when x is 0. Our aces for 2.2 are 6 and 8. And we get started here. They talk to you about a little review of moving straight ahead. I'm not going to read all this to you. You can read it out of the book or pause the video and read it here. But again, we're talking about y equals mx plus b, which I have again over here. And remember, we started moving straight ahead with distance equals rate times time. Well, d is the same as y. Our rate is the same as our slope, and t is the same as our independent variable x. Now remember, when slope is positive, the line is going to be going upwards. When slope is negative, then our line is going to be going down from left to right. Now, I didn't want to read this to you. The value of the coefficient m tells the rate at which the values of y increase or decrease as the values of x increase by 1. So every time x changes by 1, that's how it's going to be our rate. It's going to be our unit change. Since m tells you the change in y for every 1 unit change in x, it can also be called the unit rate. Remember, we talked about that all the time, and moving straight ahead was our unit rate of change. Okay, it says a unit rate is a rate in which the second number is 1 or 1 of a quantity. I also want to talk to you down here about the value of b tells the point at which the graph of the function crosses the y-axis. That point has coordinates at 0 and b, or whatever that value of y is, and that's called our y-intercept. Remember, we called it a lot of times. We talked in moving straight ahead with the value of y when x is 0. Okay? So getting into this, as we talk about slope a little more, slope would be the line that went straight down the edge of all of these, although I can't draw it very straight. But then this is the slope, and so this is the slope of our stairs. And the way we measure that is our vertical change versus our horizontal change, or our change in y over our change in x. Okay, that's our rise over run. Change in y, change in x. This triangle here in the equations, that represents change in. So this is change in y over change in x. You can read the rest of this page either in the book or pause the video here if you would like. So we get into part A of our problem. This is on page 36. Remember, we talked to that B is our y-intercept, where the line crosses the y-axis. So right here, this is where it crosses the y-axis on this one. So we have a point of 0, 0 for number 1. Okay, we have a point of 0, 0. And what it's asking us to do here is to write an equation for the lines in the form of y equals mx plus b. Well, all we need for that is any 2 points on a line. So let's pick another point here. We have this point here that's -2, -3. Okay, we have this point -2, -3. Okay, so when we want to figure out what our slope is, we take our second point, our y2, say y2, okay, minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So this is going to be y2 minus y1. Well, y2 is 0, and y1 was a -3, so we need to subtract a -3. Okay, and then our change in x was, our x2 was 0, and our x1 was a -2, so that's going to be negative as well. And then what this comes up to is 0 minus a -3 is a +3. And 0 minus a negative 2 is a positive 2. So our slope is 3 over 2. So our equation would wind up being y equals 3 over 2x. And then we don't have a y-intercept because it's, I mean, we do, it's 0, but there's no need to write plus 0 because we're not adding or subtracting anything. So I want you to do that with each of these other ones, okay, 2, 3, and 4. And then we get into part B. They give you that same sort of information, but they give it to you in table form instead of graph form. So I want you to do the same thing there. Answer a few other questions. Down here, I've reiterated that B equals a y-intercept, or where x, the value of y when x is 0. Sorry, I couldn't spit that out. And that m rise over run, change in y over change in x, or y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Part C, now they just give you 2 points. They don't show you on a graph. They just have already picked 2 points from a graph. Again, they want you to be able to figure out what your slope and y-intercept are from that, write an equation, and see if Yvonne and Jackie are correct in their last question down here. Again, ACES 2.2 are 6 and 8. Good luck, and let me know what questions you have in class.